Welcome to Wandile's Learning Cave. Today we'll be discussing a very interesting topic, one that I feel is not really represented in the South African context, but I feel is as deeply important as any other country we might want to deal with this issue, and that is Umjolo needs an urgent change. I think I'm going to have that as my title. Umjolo needs an urgent change. In any case, let's just get into the video. Anyone living in South Africa has heard of the word Umjolo at least once, either in passing or directly referenced. For those unfamiliar with the term, Umjolo in essence is South African slang for dating or relationships. The word Umjolo itself is harmless, but the concept it represents carries a lot of negative connotations, which isn't surprising as the dating market in the South African context has shown to be nothing but a catastrophe due to so many conflicting ideas, principles, and romantic expressions displayed on social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even WhatsApp these days. I can't count the number of times I've seen videos on Twitter of both men and women cheating on one another, being physically abusive, withholding affection, sabotaging each other's success, or reading the latest headline on another failed celebrity marriage. The content on Twitter for this topic alone is vast and endless. Social media, regardless of the specific platform, all run under the same principle, which is to ensure they keep you on the platform for as long as possible. And to do that requires an algorithm that not only suggests content based on what you click, but every so often also suggests content that is highly inflammatory to solicit an intense reaction upon viewing and increasing the likelihood of you staying on the platform. Combine this with the fact that negative events leave a longer lasting impression on the human mind. This is a recipe for disaster. A fair counter argument to my point is that social media does nothing other than give you what you want, of which is definitely true, but that argument fails to take into account the immense power social media has in not only dictating pop culture, but even how certain topics are to be discussed. You'd be hard-pressed to say that it had no hand in exacerbating the worst aspects of the Umjolo discussion. Is this to say that social media is entirely at fault for what has happened in the dating market of South Africa? Obviously not. I believe the issue is much deeper than that. There's a fundamentally skewed lens that we have towards dating and relationships. This lens is self-seeking, self-gratifying, self-fulfilling, and self-indulgent. I think you see where I'm going with this. And I don't see things getting better anytime soon with the direction that society is going in. In this video, I'm gonna highlight two main points, but there are more than that. But these two are the ones that I could think of at the top of my head and expand on. And I'll get to them now in the video. First one being is narcissism. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with caring and looking out for one's own interests when done in moderation and specific to every situation. But that narcissistic mentality becomes harmful when it's to the detriment of other people. Imagine if you had a terminal illness and your doctor midway through surgery realized that they forgot to feed their dog back at home. Obviously, you wouldn't expect him to leave everything at that very moment and tend to his own issues, right? A crude example, yes, but in today's society, it's perfectly normal to not only choose yourself at every turn, but it's even celebrated. In the dating world, what this usually translates into is people getting into relationships to satisfy their own desires, whether it be lust, access to resources like food and shelter, or even the concept of romance itself can turn into a desire within a relationship. What most people fail to realize, myself included, is that once you're in a relationship, you no longer seek your own interests, as you now have voluntarily chosen to integrate yourself to someone else's life with their imperfections, aspirations, goals, drives, future achievements, along with your own towards a greater cause. I believe one reason why most people are self-serving in relationships is that most fear the vulnerability created by being completely open to their partner, as they feel that it makes them weak and susceptible to getting hurt. Thus, the knee-jerk reaction is to always be in survival mode, never fully depending on anyone. And this path almost always leads to an unhappy relationship, filled with distrust, walking on eggshells, and always looking for a way out. One way to combat this is learning to submit to your partner. These days, submission is getting a bad rap, but I think that's being orchestrated by the powers that be that hate on all traditional values, whether they be good or bad. Submission is a good thing. Yes, in one sense, the woman is to submit to their partner, but so is the man supposed to submit to them as well. Only difference is how the act of submission plays out between the two. A man must submit himself to the needs of his woman, her need for protection, security, leadership, and love. The woman must submit herself to the man's needs for peace, loyalty, trust, and both need to submit to the greater cause of the relationship, which is to hopefully build something everlasting. A relationship that can stand the test of time and come out stronger due to the challenges that the couple goes through. A second issue that I've also noticed, and I feel is one that's not getting the proper discussion that it needs to have, or at least a more fleshed out discussion, is a lack of communication. I'm sure we've heard the phrase communication is key, but that's so overused that I don't think we even know what that means anymore. Yes, communication is key, but it's how you communicate that matters. I made the mistake of thinking that being blunt is just how everyone should speak, and to some degree I still believe that there's always a place for that. But what I've also learned is that gentleness in speech goes a long way. No man is too man enough to be kind with their words. Every problem requires a different response and a way of communicating. And trust me, doing this takes effort, especially on the part of the guy, as men tend to tell it like it is, you know? Then comes the hardest part after communicating, which is actively listening, not just waiting to talk back, as it requires for you to actually digest the things that they're saying. And a good exercise that I found helpful is when your partner brings up a problem, try communicating back to them what you believe they have said. More often than not, you realize that you weren't really paying attention and that you didn't grab the nuances of the issue that they feel is pressing the relationship. This exercise not only forces you to actively listen when your partner speaks out, but also helps to make them feel as though that you heard them, and you would also like to be heard in the same manner. Then the object of the discussion becomes less about what your partner did or is doing, and more of what can the two of you do to solve this issue, regardless of whom it originated from. So long as we continue in this trajectory we are headed in the dating market, it'll only get worse and more toxic. Hopefully, by beginning to outline these problems that we're struggling with, it opens the floor to honest dialogue with the intention of choosing better partners and learning that humans aren't perfect and relationships are like a delicate flower that needs special care and nurturing in order for them to bloom. Thank you, and thank you for coming to my TED Talk.